Back in the studio after 2 or 3 days away, maybe 4 actually. Life gets in the way sometimes, doesn't it? You have to do other things. Um, and I'm here to do something a little bit different today. If you've been watching me over the past couple of weeks as I've been doing these live streams, you will have seen me painting in watercolour. And I paint a lot in watercolour. I've been painting in watercolour now for, my goodness, I don't even want to think about how long. It's a long time. Um, and I've developed a particular style in watercolour. I developed that style a long time ago, really. In fact, that's particular style that I paint in watercolour. That's fairly sort of fairly detailed, I suppose, and fairly um, realistic, I suppose. Uh, is something that came naturally as I worked my way through different ideas and different techniques. Oil painting, however, that's a different thing altogether. Oil painting I found challenging. And I actually found my way with watercolours a lot earlier than I did with oil paints. I struggled with oil paints. I was putting it on fairly thick and fairly sort of undiluted, and I really didn't know what I was doing, to be perfectly honest. I was fumbling my way through it. I was reading books. We couldn't watch YouTube back then. YouTube didn't exist. But I was sort of, no, let's face it, I was struggling. But I'd managed to get a technique with watercolours that worked for me. Now, around about the same time, and we're talking around about 30 years ago now, I met another artist, an artist who was probably my age as I am now. But he was a lot older than me. He'd been painting a long time. A chap by the name of Laurie Williamson. He was a fantastic artist. And I went round to Laurie's house one day, and he said he wanted to paint my portrait, which was great. And so I sat there while he painted my portrait, but he did it in an unusual way. Whereas when you see somebody on like a portrait artist of the year on television and all that sort of thing, we think of the portrait artist as sitting there with his sitter in front of him, don't we? And with his canvas, with its back to the sitter so the sitter can't see it, and he's painting away and looking up and looking down. Laurie didn't work that way. Laurie worked in a totally different way. Laurie turned around and his canvas faced me, and he kept looking to me and looking back to the canvas, looking to me, looking back to the canvas. To him, the priority was the painting. I was there as inspiration, I suppose. But one thing it did for me is it allowed me to watch him paint. And I watched him paint, and I thought, I had no idea you could do this. He was putting on these really thin washes of oil paint right at the beginning of the painting. Really thin, flowing washes. And I thought to myself, oh, that's it, that's the answer. I've got it. I'll go home. That's the way I'm going to paint. So I did. I went back to the studio, and for a whole week I tried to paint like Laurie. Could I? Hell. I couldn't get it. I just could not get it at all. I tried to do his sort of style, and that was his style. It wasn't mine. And one day I was in Buxton, which is where I was living and painting and everything at the time. And I was in the Pavilion Gardens, and I'd got a canvas up there, and I'd got my oil paints going, and the painting in front of me was absolutely horrendous. It was going so badly, it was awful. But all of a sudden, I was thinking about what I've been trying to do with Laurie's style, and I suddenly had an idea. And I packed up all my gear and I rushed back to the studio and I sat down and I put a little picture in front of me, just a little canvas in front of me, and I started to paint this painting, and it's the one you see behind me here. It's all big, blown up rather big. It's only actually, about that sort of size really, but I thought I'd put it as a background. But basically I started to paint with the oils as if I was painting one of my watercolours. Now, I've always been told you don't do that. If you're working with oils, it's totally different from painting with watercolour. And it can be. I do a lot of knife painting, totally different style. But all of a sudden I thought, do I have to? I can adapt to what I saw Laurie doing to my technique, and so that's what I did. And I sat down and I started to paint in this particular way. And so that's what I'm going to demonstrate over the next however long it takes me. This could probably take me 2 or 3 days. That's the speed that I've been working at lately and all the other things that I've had to do. But never mind. We're going to start in this session and we're going to go on from there. Right. So I was thinking, okay, I want to show people this. I'm going to show people how to paint in this particular way that I paint and how I do it. And so I thought, well, okay, I need something to paint from. And one thing that I have done over and over and over again in the last 7 years, since my wife and I went to Paris for our honeymoon, back in 2014, I've gone back to those photographs that I took in Paris over and over and over again. I think it fulfills some kind of yearning in me, I don't know. But, so that's what I did. I went back last night and I had to look through the photographs and I thought, is there one there that I can work from? And I came up with this one. Now, as you can see there, it's busy. It's horrendously busy, and it's in itself, it doesn't make a composition. In itself, it's chaos. We've got those 2 great big parasols on the front there, and it doesn't tell any kind of story. So I thought, okay, so what will I do? I'll just take a section of it. I'll take a part of that picture and make it into a painting. And the bit that fascinates me in this photograph is the waiter standing by the door, literally waiting. So the painting got a title straight away, called Waiter. So let's move in and make the waiter the main thing in the painting, as far as I'm concerned. And what's he waiting for? Is he waiting for the young ladies on the table on the left of the picture there to finish reading what looks like a guidebook? I thought it was the menu at first. It might be the menu, but I don't think so. They're just sitting reading there. Or is he waiting for the couple in front of him to finish messing about on their iPads and their phones? Whatever it is, he's just waiting. And I just thought it was a lovely image of him standing there literally waiting. But what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is that damn parasol right in the middle of the picture is horrible. It just divides the thing right down into thirds, really, a third and 2/3, and it's ugly. So then I thought, well, okay, let's get rid of the parasol. So I got it in a Photoshop and I took away the parasol. Now, in the act of taking away the parasol, we get a much nicer composition. But we do get a problem in the fact that the parasol is obscuring the window behind. So, with a little bit of compositing, what I did is I went to another photograph that I took of the same restaurant, and I took the the window from one of those photographs, and I changed what they call the skew, because it was actually going off at in a perspective, and I changed the skew on it and I put it behind the people, and I then made it transparent so we could still see some of what was behind that I'd messed about with, and tried to get the idea that they were sitting in front of the window. And I'm quite happy with it in a way, because it's very similar to the window that's actually behind the waiter. So that's what I'm going to work from. I'm going to work from this image, which I have in front of me on my tablet down here. And I have messed about with it a little bit more. And what I've done is I've put it through a filter. And I've done that to stop myself getting too caught up in the detail. I'll quite often do that. I instead of working from a photograph as it is, I'll work from a photograph that I've taken some of the detail out. I am not going to recreate this photographically. I am going to paint a painting based on this. So what I've done, if we go to the above pic, you will see there what I've done is I have drawn it out onto a very small canvas. This is a tiny little canvas, but for demonstrating this particular technique, it's a smashing little size actually. And if you are, as I am, dependent on selling paintings to make any kind of living, then sometimes you need small paintings as well as big paintings, because big paintings take a long time to do and have to cost a lot of money because they take a long time to do. Smaller paintings make an affordable, much more affordable painting for someone to buy. So let's work on a small one. And it's funny because I wouldn't think twice of working on a small piece of paper to make a watercolour, but somehow it seems strange sometimes to think, oh, I'm going to paint in oils and I'm going to paint on a small canvas. But why not? Let's face it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a technique that I developed all those years ago, that it goes against all the rules that I was taught when I was taught to paint, especially when I'm talking about painting in oils and everything, is that normally I would be working on, and I would be putting in all the darks, and I'd paint the whole thing, paint all the darks in, and then I'd work out of that, slowly eking my way out. With this one, I'm going to do something different, so that I can keep working without smudging on the painting, and so that you can see everything that I'm doing as I'm doing it. I'm going to work on this area first, and then I'm going to work across the painting until I get over here. I've got a very, as you can see, I've got a very rough sketch of the drawing here. Really just a few outlines here and there. Most of the work, most of these lines, most of this tracing, as you will see, will disappear within a few minutes of me starting to work on an area. But it imposes limits, and that's what I need at first. It's like here, down here, we can see the limit of the window on this side. And if we treat this area here as the area where we're going to start, and we work over, then we can actually get that limit, get that bit worked up, and then work across. It will work. It will work. Believe me, it works. So what am I doing? I'm going to put some paint onto the side here. You can just about see over here. I can't move the camera, unfortunately. It's suspended above me and it doesn't move. But if you just see here, just see a corner. And what I've done is I'm not using a palette. What I do is I take a piece of greaseproof paper, bit of kitchen paper, and I tape it to the surface of the table. It works great as a palette. I never have to clean it. As soon as I've finished, I just screw it up and throw it in the bin. Wonderful. I'm going to work with a rather limited palette. I'm going to work with, starting with the darkest, let's work forward. I'm going to work with Lamp Black. Now, some people say, oh, we shouldn't use black and all this sort of thing. Black kills the painting and all this sort of thing. But go and have a look at a painting by Manet. Go and have a look at some of Edouard Manet's paintings. He used black all the time, and he created, with his use of black, a real strength. And that's what this particular image needs. If we take another look again at the image, you can see here there's a lot of dark in there, and we want to get strong contrasts in there. We want to get strong contrasts between the depth of, in that dark doorway and the depth behind the people, and the people then will like zing out from the canvas, and our friend over there is going to like fall back into the darkness a little bit. It tell you what it reminded me of. That when I saw him standing there, it reminded me, I don't know whether you've seen it, but there's a famous Edward Hopper picture of a cinema, and you can see the cinema screen over on the left hand side, but over on the right hand side, leaning against the wall, is the usherette, and she looks bored silly. And it just reminded me of that, and I think that's what drew me to it, really. I mean, this won't be a hopper, it'll be a bird, it'll be one of mine. But it was just that way that he's standing there reminded me of that girl in that Hopper picture, and that's what drew me to paint this. So what we've got Lamp Black. Let's go back to the overhead shot again. Where are we? There we go. We've got Lamp Black. Now I'm using Alkids. For this sort of painting, Alkids are fantastic. I've worked with Alkids now for years. I love Alkids. The way that I work, I don't want my painting to stay wet for days on end. It's not the way I work. I want my painting to dry, but still give me time to work the painting. Why don't you paint in acrylics, you might say? Because I absolutely hate them. That's why. I just do not like the way acrylics work. Acrylics, to me, they do weird things. They do weird things. I paint with them. I try painting with them and they go matte, and I hate that matte look that they get. Also, as they dry, they go darker. I'm used to working with watercolours that dry, they go lighter when they dry. But these things go darker, so it's really, I don't know. And I don't like that sort of, there's no butteriness to them. Alkids, on the other hand, have got a lovely butteriness to them, especially for the knife painting. They work great. And when a knife painting, they're brilliant as well, because if you're doing a knife painting, you're putting impasto on. You're putting your paint on thick, and you don't want it to take 6 months to dry. You want it to dry so that you can carry on working on it. Or you can put it in the post and send it to whoever buys the painting. You don't have to wait. I don't like waiting. So we're using Alkids. We're using Lamp Black, as I say. I'm going to use Prussian Blue. I'm going to use Burnt Umber, Burnt Sienna, and just on the edge there, some Yellow Ochre. And that should, for the moment, give us everything we need. Where is the white, you might say? Exactly. Where is the white? The white will come into it later, because what I'm going to be doing first is I'm going to be working with what's known as essence. You just have to excuse me, I'm going to lift it up here. I need to get a tool out of the drawer behind me. Underneath here. There we go. One of the things that happens with these damn oil paints, especially these Alkids, they have a problem with, they dry and they get, as your hands get older, it becomes harder and harder to get the damn lids off them. So I've got this pair of, there we are, pair of mole grips here that allows me to grip the top and turn the thing. Makes it a lot easier. So we're just starting right across the top. A little bit of black, we'll probably need more of that, but we're not going to need much yet. We can always add. Remember, this is going to go off overnight probably, the paint that I put on the palette. So you don't want to put too much out, especially for a tiny canvas like this. There we go. And again, there's the Prussian blue. You can't really see this, can you? But never mind, doesn't matter. I'm basically just putting my paints out. I would have done it in advance, but then again, I didn't, so never mind. Then burnt umber. That's nice. Burnt sienna. Oh, these are new tubes. It seems like a new tube of paint. Wonderful. And because they're new, I don't have to use the mole grips on the damn things, which is great. And some yellow ochre, and lovely. And that's basically it for the moment. Because as I said before, what I'm going to be working with is what they call essence. An essence is literally terps, or in this case, Sanzardo, the odor-free what's the word I'm looking? Synthetic terps. Supposed to be a lot healthier for you, and I am working in a very small environment here. So I've got a little pot there of Sanzardo. I do actually, I mean, rather defeats the point really, but I actually do have a container here of terps that I will use to wash my brushes, because I want to try and keep that Sanzardo cleaned, just like you would keep your water clean if you wanted to ensure that you had you were going to get nice clean colours in a watercolour. So let's go to the overhead chat in that way. Let's bring in the chat room, and you can still see the painting clearly, hopefully. And now we've got the chat open, so anybody that's there, I see people keep popping in and out. Anybody that's there that would like to say hello, please do. My phone is making noises, ignore that. If it rings, I will go on silent for a little while because I'm waiting for a phone call. So fingers crossed, my phone call will come, because I'm very much looking forward to getting it. And so what am I going to do first? I'm going to have a look at the top corner. Now then, I've got one of those. Got some new brushes here, and when they've been put into those plastic little tubes that they put over the brushes, sometimes they're not put in properly. They're a bit careless, and it bends a couple of the. That's it. Bends a couple of the tiny bristles the wrong direction, and that's really irritating. So I've trimmed them off now. That's fine. And so what I'm going to look is I'm going to look at this area here, and I'm going to work as if I am working with a watercolour. And so I don't know whether you can see over here. I'll try and work to the side. Hold on. Maybe if I know what I'm going to do. Excuse me a moment. Let's grab this chat box. I'm going to move the chat box over this side. and that way that should be better, and that way you should be able to still see what I'm doing, but now you can see the edge of my palette too. I don't know, you can see a bit of it, but basically I've got some thinner here, some Sandora here, and I'm just going to take a little bit of pigment, just a tiny touch of pigment. Now you'll see that some of these pigments are really a lot stronger than you would like them to be. But what I'm looking at is I'm looking at this area over here. And I want to create the sort of greys, and see it's so strong, much stronger than you want it to be. Let's put a bit of blue back in that. And there's hardly any pigment here. This is literally what they call essence. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to put in this area here. Now that is keeping it thin, maybe adding a little bit of get some of that off. I don't really notice, but some of this is like, it almost dries immediately as you put it on. But what we're doing is it's like we're working very gently, wet into wet. With these pigments. And it's almost staining the canvas rather than putting loads of paint on. Now you might think to yourself, what the heck's he doing? He's not really putting paint on, but I am putting paint on. Very, very slowly. Building it up very, very gradually. I'm working my way across the canvas. You have to be careful, so some of these pigments are a lot denser than others. answer. Now this isn't how the books tell you to paint with oils. But let me tell you that there's no reason on this earth why you shouldn't. Especially at the beginning of a painting, when what you're trying to do is to put down the lean layers. Now you must have heard that. You must have heard that as a thing that you should do when you're painting in watercolours. That the whole thing of fat over lean, as they put it. I'm going to actually, I wasn't going to, but I am going to put in. Try to get this open. I'm going to put a little bit of alizarin crimson down. I didn't think I was going to need it. And I've just looked at this area and I want it to be a little bit purpley. So let's get some blue and some, that's it, make it a deep purple. And put it in down here. I'm going to change, I mean I've started off with a very small brush, you will have noticed this, but I want to be putting down a little bit more colour, so let's just clean that off then. Let's change to a flat and go for this again. And now we can put in down here, that's it, we can come down, right the way down. A bit of black in there. One of the only problems I find working like this, because I'm working on the flat and I'm doing it so that you can clearly see what I'm doing. One of the major problems of this way of doing it is the fact that I get a little bit of glare onto the paint, so it's a bit more tricky making sure that it's going on the way I want it to, make it a little bit more purple. Now we've got far too much pigment in there really for what I'm trying to do, so let's turn it down. This is literally, there's hardly any pigment. This is literally pure thinners with a tiny touch of the pigment in there. And I don't know whether you can see, but it's more or less, it's almost drying as soon as it hits the canvas, which isn't what you expect from oil paints, is it? Sort of making sort of a sketch at the moment rather than anything else, I suppose. There's no need to be plastering the stuff on really thickly at the moment, because we are just starting. We are covering the canvas and getting the white out of the way, but working in a similar way to the way that we would with watercolour, and putting the I'm leaving the area underneath at the moment where the canvas is showing through to give me my lights. And what we'll end up with at the end of this process is we'll end up with a sort of thinned out layer of paint that we can then, as we get towards further into the painting, we can then we can then add the sort of more traditional oil paint with the mixed with white and everything over the top to work, as they say, thick over thin, fat over lean. If you see, in fact I did see at the weekend I went to one of my favourite galleries. I went to the Lady Lever Art Gallery in Port Sunlight and on Merseyside, and they had an exhibition on there at the moment of the works of Augustus John. It was really interesting. John's portraits, fascinating, and being able to get right up close to them was lovely. But there was one painting there, I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head, but the whole painting had cracked so much, it got crackly all over it, where the paint had shrunk over time, and as it shrunk it cracked. You must have seen that happening. You see the paint surface shrinking, and that is so often caused by bad technique. You know, we want to see good technique is to put the thinner layers on the bottom, mainly with terps, and look, it's dry almost as I'm working. You think, what? No, it can't be, but it is. go. This won't be left like this. We'll work on it as we go. As we work through it. It will disappear. But we have to start somewhere, and we have to get it we have to get these paints in to work on them. Get it blocked in, get it covered up. Aha! Do you know, sorry Dusty Guy, I did not see you there. Raj, isn't it? I know now. Do you know, I really need some kind of alert to come on the screen to tell me when somebody's there, because I don't look up often enough. Well, my interview was ace. It went really, really well, actually. I thought it went well. Whether they thought it went well, I still don't know, because they said they'd let me know by Tuesday, but it's just coming to 5 o'clock on Tuesday, and as yet my phone hasn't rung, so I really don't know what's happening. In fact, the waiting is killing me, to be perfectly honest. Well, I did, to be perfectly honest. I came out of the interview thinking, well, whatever happens, I couldn't have done any better. I gave it my best shot, as you say. And then it's just up to them, isn't it, as to what the competition's like, whether they feel that your face fits. Who knows? It's nice to be working with a different medium and doing something a little bit different today. I like working in watercolours, but I like to work in oils as well. And there is a video online. Don't know whether you've seen it. I think I put it onto place it again the other day of me knife painting, which I love to do. This is very different from that as well. This is a bright baby, little baby of canvas. This is, I tell you, I mean, there's my hand. This is a 7x5. It's the same size as a lot of the watercolours that I do. It makes it not everybody can afford my oil paintings. My oil paintings tend to be bigger and take longer, and so have to cost more. And so, you know, sometimes you want to do a smaller size, specifically for those people that would like a painting of yours, but they can't afford the biggies. Some people would like a smaller one. Let's come down here again. Sort of like putting in washes of watercolour, and it actually, because it's the way that a solvent works, it actually flows better than watercolour does, really. Just realised you can't see what I'm doing. Oh yeah, moved it out of the way. That's boring, isn't it, when you can't see what's going on? Yes, I have. I've painted things from my imagination in the past, but I prefer to have something in front of me. I prefer to respond to something that I can see. This is a part of my life. This one. This is from a photograph that I took 7 years ago in Paris. And I don't know what it is. Imagination is, I don't know. Maybe if I'm honest, I'm too locked into the whole notion of whether people will buy into what I do. I mean, I have to be perfectly honest, the reason that I paint is to try and make a living. And I don't know whether I'm secure enough to say, well, this is what is in my imagination, this is what I do. Buy it if you feel like it. I don't know. I don't know whether it's just confidence or what. I was actually watching you game the other night, Raj, to be perfectly honest. You were online and I went and had a little bit of a lurk in the background as you were playing a game. And I have no idea what the game was, but it looked fascinating. It sort of was like this strange little podgy guy with a bowler hat and glasses on, and then this sort of, I don't know what it was, angel type woman thing went off into space. It was quite fascinating. I had no idea what was going on. Yeah, that's the problem with dreams, isn't it? I mean, I was, when I was younger, um, fascinated by surrealism, which is so much of surrealism was dream based, and the surrealists put set a lot of store by dreams, but I don't know. Maybe it's to do with getting older. Here we go again. Getting it blocked in, I suppose. Once it's blocked in, we can start from there, working on all the little areas and building the little areas up. was that sound? Some kind of notification. Was it Bayonetta? Ah. It is absolutely, it just absolutely crazy. Never seen anything like it. I must say, I did like the look of it though. Now, to some degree, I'm not doing what I said I was going to do at the beginning, because what I said I was going to do at the beginning was work on that and get it finished. But in the end, I don't know. My brush takes over. And starts to go where it wants to go. So you'll have to put up with that a little bit. Maybe it's not brilliant teaching technique. Yeah, I know what you mean there. I love cafe scenes actually. I do. It's one of my favourite subjects. I do return to the cafe scene over and over and over again. Oh, that's interesting. I do like occasionally just to log into my own stream and to see how far behind it is. I do like occasionally just to log into my own stream and to see how far behind it is. That's pretty good, isn't it, really? To be perfectly honest. That's not much of a delay. Didn't expect that. That's much better than I anticipated. Didn't expect that. That's much better than I anticipated. I don't know whether you saw, I did finally finish the painting that I was working on the other day of the two little kids. I finished the last. That's about 10 seconds, that's really good. That's about 10 seconds, that's really good. When I'm going to turn it off now. But when you consider that I don't have the most amazing internet connection here, I'm out in the countryside, and not only that, this is streaming to, I mean, I know you Restream do most of the technology, but it is streaming live to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and to Twitch. I mean, I think that's quite amazing, really. And I am talking to you, and you are in India, thousands of miles away, and there's a 10-second delay. That's absolutely amazing, really. I still find it's magic. The wonders of technology, indeed. I might have to do this differently to finish it off. I'm trying to move on the camera around because I'm finding it quite tricky to judge tones with it laying down. Probably because of my lighting. Remember that this isn't anywhere near the final layer of paint. There will be more paint applied over this paint that I'm putting on, especially when I start to work the colour into the painting, which I will do using Liquin, which flows nicely across the canvas. there's a tendency when you're doing this sort of thing, when you're sort of blocking in and getting it laid in there, to want to get involved into too much detail. And fiddling with it. And one thing you don't want to do when you're working with oil paint is to do that, is to get involved with small things too early on, because the nature of oil paint means that you can actually start from a very broad base, like this, really, and the detail, the different colours can come later. Oh my goodness, what's my favourite movie? Do you know, that is the sort of question that a young man asks. Because when you've lived as long as I have, you've seen an awful lot of films. Oh God, I don't know. I really don't know. I've seen too many. I'm a bit of a bugger for rom-coms, to be perfectly honest. They probably wouldn't have guessed that. I like the old movies, really old movies. I like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and I like the Marx Brothers, and those really, really old films. And they're all black and white movies. I've never been able to be. I've never been bitten, I suppose, if that's the right word, by the whole Star Wars thing. It doesn't do anything for me, really. Preferred E.T. to Star Wars. Exactly. Always look at the bigger picture. You're right, and then work your way into it. They used to say when I was learning art as a young man, one of the things they used to say quite often was to get the paper, get the white of the canvas or the paper covered up as quickly as possible. Oh gosh, I remember many years ago, my first wife and I, we were in our early 20s, and we bought our first house. And when we bought our first house, she decided that actually what we should do next and what we wanted next was 2 cats. So we went and got these 2 kittens, Paddy and Murphy. No, sorry, not Paddy. And Jenny, that was it. Murphy and Jenny, that was it. God, it's such a long time ago, I'd almost forgotten. But we went and got these 2 kittens, and they were extremely cute. You know, they were so cute. But this was the 1980s, and one of the crazes in the 1980s was to put Hessian wallpaper on one of your walls. It was like a feature wall. You put this Hessian wallpaper on. And I'd spent ages putting this Hessian wallpaper on the chimney breast. And these 2 little kittens saw this and just saw it as a challenge. And they just looked at it and woof! And you realise that 2 kittens can very, very quickly climb all the way up to the ceiling, digging their claws into Hessian wallpaper. That was not that. I was not that impressed, to be perfectly honest, when they did it. Karen, hello. How are you? It was your cat that was walking on the keyboard. You know, I must pay more attention to this chat and make sure I see what's there. 98*/7. What does that mean? Ooh. Oh, this is your cat. It's your cat typing 98*/7. Ooh. Gotcha. Big question is, Karen, has your painting arrived? And if it has arrived, have they managed to get it there in one piece? Oh, come on. I have heard that excuse more than once in my time as a lecturer. That's an old one. The dog ate my homework. I don't believe that one. Never believe that one. You don't get that one so much nowadays. Nowadays what you get is, my hard drive failed and I've lost everything. And then you say, did you back it up? No. Oh dear. Whoops. No marks. Well, no, they don't associate dark with watercolour, Karen, and it's not even watercolour. This, for the first time, is an oil painting. This is the beginnings. This is like putting down the first layers of an oil painting. I fancied a change. So, and to be honest, to be perfectly honest with you, the oil paint, the watercolours, seem to have stopped getting much attention online. So I thought I'd do something different. You can be forgiven for the mistake though, because I am working with very, very thin paint that's hardly got any pigment in it at all. It's nearly all thinner. This is going to be a lot looser when it's done than my watercolours tend to be. Oh, I believe you. The dog ate my homework. That's a cliche over here. I don't know whether it is over there, but over here, the dog ate my homework. It's a total cliche. This is very roughly sketched in. Much more roughly sketched in than my watercolours are, because I like to work more freely with oil paint. It's much more fun in that sense. And when it's done, you'll see what I mean. This is one that will, whereas whereas the what's the name, the watercolours tend to sort of, you can see what's coming and you see them grow. This is different. This will emerge. Each section will. I feel like with oil painting, each section I tend to like. It's like you start to pull it out of the picture. You start to make it appear, force it to appear. And I will make marks in oil as I go on that I would never make in watercolour. Ah. So Karen, you probably didn't hear me ask before, had your painting arrived? Should have got there by now, surely. Oh no, not yet. I'll have to trace it. I've got the tracking number somewhere. I should be able to see where it is. It's on top of my computer in the house. I'll check it over and see where it is. Taking its time, isn't it? Yeah, I'm going to be finishing soon myself soon, Raj. So have a nice night, and I'll see you again. Oh, I think we're almost at a point where I'm going to call it a night. I know it looks nothing at the moment, does it? But it will. Give it time, it will. This is the way that these sort of paintings go. In fact, if you bear with me for a moment, let's have a little look. You will still see that screen. I am now looking at a totally different screen. If I go back, let's have a look. Oh, that's really sad. I just had an alert come up on my screen to say that Charlie Watts, the Rolling Stones drummer, has died, age 80. Oh, that's the end of an era. Starting to believe that they could go on forever, but it's not the way things go, is it? I feel quite sad now. Do you know, here we go, there's one. This is what we're after. This is a similar sort of painting. That's if I come back to see if I can get up on the screen. This is a similar sort of painting style. Let me get my screen recording up on the screen. That's the one. This is a similar sort of painting that I did a few years ago to the one that I'm working on now. Just to show you the sort of way that the stages go. That's the way that that's the way it starts out. I mean, that's more detailed than this. This is a much rougher sketch. But basically, quite a rough sort of scribbly sort of sketch onto the canvas to start it off. And then if I zoom up here, then we go to that was the next stage. Seems to be a little bit out of focus. Come on. You get the idea. I think this is Google Photos playing up here. But there's the same idea. I put in some blacks and I put in some colours in the background. Just a little bit here, a little bit there. And then I start to add more colour, and all the time it's messy, messy, messy. All the time messy, until it starts to get less messy as we go through it, and eventually after a while comes together as a painting. And I think the next one actually shows the whole thing happening. A little bit too fast, but that's the way it comes together, and that's what this one's going to do that I'm working on now. The photo that I'm working from at the moment is, where has it gone? Well, I did explain at the beginning, but I'll show you now. It's based on, that's the photograph that it's based on. This is, I keep going back. I keep going back to the photographs that I took on our honeymoon when Jane and I went to Paris for our honeymoon 7 years ago. And I took loads and loads of pictures, and I think it's just me dreaming of being in Paris in the sort of 1870s or whatever. But I go back to them every now and again, and I pick one out and I go, perhaps I can do something with this. And this one in particular, I just love the way that the waiter is literally just standing there at the side. But of course that's too much that you're looking at there, and you've got these awful, two horrible parasols right at the front that just look awful. So I thought, well, okay, I'll crop it down. So I cropped it down, which I like a lot better. And I did explain at the beginning, but now I've got people listening, I'll say it again. It reminded me, when I saw this, it reminded me of there's a very famous Hopper painting of the inside of a cinema with the usherette leaning against the wall, looking bored. And the way that he's standing, the position that he's standing in this painting, just reminded me of that, and it just made me want to paint it. So, but what I wanted to do was get rid of this thing, get rid of the parasol, which is right in the middle and obscuring everything and looks horrible. So I took out the parasol and I worked on the window in the background to pull everything together, and that's what I worked it down to. And that's what I'm working from. I'm working from that. And of course it won't look exactly like that. It'll look like an oil painting when it's done. But it will be looser than my watercolours. And more, I don't know, more impressionistic, hopefully, more, in a way, more vigorous with its paint. But that will come in the next session, I think. For the moment, that's where I'm going to leave it. Because of the way I've been working, it's more or less dry all over, which is pretty good, really. And it means that when I start working on it with the oil paint, and I bring the white into it, and we start working into it like a proper oil surface, we should get some really nice textures on there, even though it's a little one, a small one. Yeah, it is. It's that thing, isn't it? It's that. You know, I've just got Hopper in my head at the moment, and I'm not trying to imitate Hopper, but it's just in my head. It's the Nighthawks is probably his most famous painting. With the people sitting in the cafe at night, and they're all in their own world. Everybody, I think in Hopper's paintings, so often people are just in their own world, and it's a very modern thing, isn't it? If we look at it, the two ladies on the left are engrossed in reading. I thought they were looking at the menu at first, but I don't think they are. I think they're looking at some kind of books, guidebooks. But I don't. Maybe they've been to a gallery and bought a guidebook or something. I don't know. And of course the two there in the middle. He's on his iPad and she's on her phone. I mean, this is the 21st century in paint, isn't it? In the end, and he's just standing there. The waiter's just standing there, waiting for somebody to call him over. And so that it will be called Waiting when it's finished. It is tiny. It will be hopefully a little gem of a painting, small enough to be cheap enough for somebody to buy one of my paintings that would not maybe want to be in a position to buy one of the bigger oil paintings because they take more time. We'll have to see how it goes. In the end, I don't know. It's all up in the air at the minute. I thought I ought to paint something. Indeed. Yeah, that's what I thought. Being a bit clever with the old words there. But as everything seems to have slowed down on the I Paint Your Life front at the moment, no matter what I post online, I don't seem to be able to get anybody to send me another picture to paint. So I thought I'd just paint one of my own and enjoy painting it and see if anybody wants it in the end. Anyway, thank you for spending some time with me again. It's been nice to see people lurking in the background there and watching. And it's been nice as usual to have a couple of friendly faces pop up and chat to me as I work my way through these paintings. I shall put something over the top of that. I think I've got a saucer here actually overnight and see if I can stop it from drying out too much so I can still use it tomorrow. That will probably do the job there. Stop the air getting to it. Put the lid on my trusty old oil can, well, Terps can, for cleaning my brushes. Wonderful little old thing, out of ages. That's one of the nice things when you get a few years behind you and everything, is that the tools that you're using to create your pictures, they've got a bit of history to them for you. You know, I've got brushes over here that I've had for 30 odd years. And let's make sure that one, I've used that one, I've used that one. And I've used that one. I'm talking to myself because I'm going to have to go and wash these brushes in soap and water so that they're still nice to use tomorrow probably. I'll see you again soon, Karen. Very nice to chat to you again. I will go and check and see where your painting is, because I would have thought it should have arrived by now. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and bye bye.